You are checking your accounts, cutting back on coffee, yet your net worth feels frozen. Why? Because you are fighting the wrong enemy. The real wealth killers are not your lattes. They are the 7 silent, socially approved habits you mistake for living. I documented every pound for a decade and found the culprit. Habit number 2. It bled me dry to the tune of 87,000 pounds before I even noticed. This was not a bad investment. This was my normal life. If you want to stop the leak and start the flow, you need to see where your money is actually going. This changes everything. Habit 1, the future you tax, the first silent leak. Let us begin with something you do almost every day. You walk into a supermarket with a list. You need milk, bread, eggs. You leave having spent 40, 50, 60 pounds more. You tell yourself, it is just a few extra things. It is on sale. I deserve this treat after the day I have had. This is not about groceries. This is about the first and most cunning spending habit, the future you tax. You see, every time you make an unplanned purchase, no matter how small, you are not just spending today's money. You are imposing a tax on your future self. You are stealing from the person you want to become. I want you to visualize this clearly. Imagine your future self, 5 years from now, more confident, financially secure, perhaps starting a family or buying a home. Now picture yourself walking up to that person and taking a 10-pound note from their wallet. Every single time you click Buy Now on that impulse Amazon purchase, that is what you are doing. You are a thief robbing your own future. This is where most people destroy their future without realizing it. They believe wealth is built through giant leaps, big investments, promotions, lottery wins. The truth is far more quiet and far more decisive. Wealth is built or destroyed in these microscopic moments of decision. The 3 snack you did not need, the 12 app subscription you never use, the 30 bargain shirt that still has its tags on. These are not expenses, these are taxes, and your future self is the one paying them with interest in the form of delayed dreams, compounded stress, and a lifetime of playing catch-up. I learned this not in a boardroom, but in my own kitchen. For years, I kept a miscellaneous column in my budget. It was a polite term for I have no idea where this money went. One Sunday evening, I decided to forensically track every single transaction from the previous month. Not the big ones, the mortgages, the car payments, but the sub-20 transactions. The coffees, the parking apps, the online downloads, the convenience store trips. The total was a quiet, devastating earthquake. It was more than my car insurance premium. It was enough to fully fund a retirement account for the year. I was not living lavishly. I was just living unconsciously. And that unconsciousness was the tax man, and he was taking his share from the future Mark Tilbury every single day. The consequence of this habit is not an empty bank account today. It is an empty life tomorrow. It is the holiday you cannot take. It is the security cushion you do not have when the car breaks down. It is the crushing feeling of being perpetually 3 months behind. You are not bad with money. You are simply, systematically, funding your present comfort by bankrupting your future potential. And the moment you see these small transactions for what they truly are, not purchases, but thefts from your own destiny, is the moment your financial life splits into a before and an after. So, what is the antidote? It is not deprivation, it is intention, it is the 48-hour rule. For any non-essential purchase over 20 pounds, you must wait 48 hours. If you still want it after 2 days, you can buy it. You will find that 80% of the time the urge passes. The future you will not have been robbed. And that remaining 20%? You will buy it with clarity, not compulsion. You will have paid yourself first. instead of taxing yourself last. Habit 2. The loyalty trap, where I lost $87,000, the emotional drain. Now we arrive at the heart of the matter. The second habit. This is not about small change. This is about the grand, silent betrayal you commit in the name of comfort. I call it the loyalty trap. And if you do not identify this in your own life within the next 60 seconds, you will continue to pay for it year after year, just as I did. The loyalty trap is simple. You stay with a service, a provider, a subscription, or even a mindset long after it has stopped serving you. You do this because it is familiar, because switching requires effort, because you tell yourself, it is only a few pounds more each month. This is where most people wake up at 45 years old and wonder where their wealth went. It did not vanish in a fire. It seeped out, drip by drip, through the cracks of passive loyalty. I lost £87,000 to this. Not in a day. Over 11 years. It was my business insurance policy. When I first started, I found a friendly broker. He was kind, explained things well, and the initial price was fair. Every year the renewal would come. The price would creep up, 5% one year, 8% the next. I would look at it, feel a twinge of annoyance, and think, but he knows my business. Switching would be a hassle. What if the new provider does not pay out on a claim? And I would sign. I was not lazy. I was emotionally captive. I was paying a comfort tax that cost me more than the premium itself. This is the moment I personally learned this the hard way. In year 12, a young associate in my office asked to review our overheads. He came back white as a sheet. "Mark," he said, "we are being taken for a ride." He obtained 3 new quotes for the same coverage. The difference was not 10%. It was 62% less. 62%. I had been overpaying by thousands, year after year, for over a decade. I did the maths in a state of cold shock. The total was £87,000. That was not a business expense. That was a monument to my own inertia. That money could have been a deposit on a commercial property. It could have funded a team member's pension for life. Instead, it was just gone, evaporated, for nothing. The loyalty trap does not only apply to insurance. It is your mobile phone contract that auto-renews at an inflated rate. It is your gym membership you never use. It is your mortgage that rolled onto the standard variable rate. It is your loyalty to a brand that no longer offers quality. It is even your loyalty to a financial advisor who has not grown your wealth in 5 years. You are confusing loyalty with passivity. And the financial services industry banks on this exact confusion. They call you retained. I call you asleep. The psychological cost is heavier than the financial one. This habit trains you to accept deterioration as normal. It teaches you that your time and attention are not worth the effort to save money. It creates a life of quiet financial resignation. You begin to believe that being overcharged is just part of being an adult. It is not. It is part of being unaware. So here is your action, and it is non-negotiable. Once a year, you must conduct what I call a loyalty audit. You will take one afternoon. You will list every single subscription, every contract, every policy, every service you pay for on a recurring basis. You will then, one by one, call to cancel or ask for a better rate. You will be shocked at how many retention offers appear the moment you try to leave. That £87,000 lesson taught me this. Loyalty is a virtue you give to people, not to corporations. Your loyalty should be to your own financial well-being first. Anything less is a betrayal of the future you are trying to build. If you are still watching this, you are already ahead of most people, because this is exactly where people stop listening. They hear a big number like 87,000, and they feel a pang of fear. They think, that could be me. And then they click away because the truth is too bright to look at. But you are still here. That means you are ready to look. And that is the only difference that ever matters. Habit 3, the emotional shelter, buying peace at any price. If you are still watching right now, you are in the 10% who are willing to hear the truth. We now move to the third habit. This is the one that controls your decisions, not your wallet. It is called the emotional shelter. Let me tell you a small story. It was a Thursday in 2018, early morning. I was leaving home, already late for the office. My car was running on empty. There was a petrol pump on the way, but the line was long. I thought, forget it, I'll fill up later. I reached the office, jumped into meetings. Returning in the evening, the fuel light was on. There was that same pump, same long line. I felt frustration and exhaustion. Ahead was a convenience store pump. No line, but petrol was 15 pence per liter more expensive. In that moment I did not calculate. I did not think. My mind screamed one word, peace. I pulled in, filled the tank, and paid a $9 premium for the privilege of avoiding 5 minutes in a queue. That is, the emotional shelter. This is where most people destroy their financial future without realizing it. You are not buying petrol. You are buying an escape from discomfort. You are not ordering takeaway. You are purchasing relief from the mental load of cooking. You are not upgrading your phone. You are investing in a temporary shield from feeling left behind. Every single one of these transactions has a hidden price tag, the peace premium, and it is the most expensive line item in your life. Here is another micro-story. A friend of mine, a brilliant lawyer, was working on a high-stakes case, 70-hour weeks. One night at 11 p.m., she realized she needed a specific legal textbook for the next morning. The bookstore was closed. Amazon could deliver it in 2 days. She found a niche website that offered overnight delivery for a $45 shipping fee. The book itself cost $30. She paid the $75 without blinking. In her mind, it was not an expense. It was an insurance policy against her own anxiety. She bought the certainty of preparedness. That $45 was the emotional shelter fee. And she paid it monthly, in different forms: expensive meal kits to avoid grocery shopping, last-minute train tickets to avoid planning, premium fees to avoid waiting. The consequence is a life lived on financial adrenaline. Your bank account becomes a tool for mood management. You are not building net worth. You are funding emotional rescue missions. This habit creates a dangerous loop. Stress leads to spending, spending leads to financial stress, and financial stress leads to more spending for relief. It is a debt spiral of the soul. So, what is the escape? It is not about becoming a robot. It is about recognition. You must build what I call a peace protocol. Before any unplanned spend, you must pause and ask this brutal question: am I buying a product or am I renting a feeling? If it is the latter, you must physically set a timer for 10 minutes. Walk away, breathe. In those 10 minutes, the emotional wave will often pass, and you will see the transaction for what it truly is, a toll on your future for a temporary comfort today. This is the quiet failure most people recognize but never name. They feel a vague shame after these purchases, a sense of being controlled by their own impulses. The turning point comes when you realize that true peace is not something you can buy at a petrol pump or a checkout page. True peace is what you own when your finances are no longer at the mercy of your feelings. Habit 4. The invisible infrastructure, paying for a life you do not live now. I want you to think about your home. Specifically, think about the cupboard, the drawer, or the spare room where you keep the things you bought for a version of yourself that does not exist. The expensive hiking boots for the mountain, walks you never take. The pristine kitchen gadget that promised homemade bread but now gathers dust. The online course you purchased in a moment of inspiration only to never log in again. This is not clutter. This is the invisible infrastructure, and you are spending a fortune to maintain a ghost town. Let me tell you about my sailing phase. A few years ago, I became convinced that what my life needed was the open sea, the salt air, the quiet mastery of a vessel. I saw a version of myself, calm, weathered, smiling at the helm. I did not buy a book. I did not take a beginner's lesson. I went directly to a boat show and fell in love with a beautiful 28-foot sloop. I negotiated, I signed the papers, I became a boat owner. For 6 months I paid for mooring fees, insurance, maintenance, and specialist equipment. I used it twice. Both times I was seasick, anxious, and realized I preferred the view of the water from land. That boat was not a boat. It was a cathedral I built to a future self I never became. The total cost? Just over £22,000. Not for an experience, for a fantasy. This is where people wake up at 35 with anxiety, surrounded by the archaeology of their abandoned selves. Every unused item is a tombstone for a dream you did not pursue. But the cost is more than financial. It is psychological. Each one of these objects whispers a quiet message of failure. You are not a baker. You are not an artist. You are not an adventurer. You are not paying for the object. You are paying for a monthly subscription to self-disappointment. The mechanism is subtle. You see, marketing rarely sells you a product. It sells you an identity. It sells you a doorway into a better, more interesting version of you. The purchase is the easiest part. It is the moment of transformation. But when the box arrives, the magic is gone. You are left with a thing and the same old you. The gap between the fantasy and the reality is where your net worth disappears. There is a micro-story here, one I see constantly. A young man walks into a premium cycling shop. He buys a racing bicycle that costs more than his monthly rent. He buys the shoes, the kit, the heart rate monitor. In his mind, he is already lean, fast, part of a peloton. The bicycle sits in his flat. After work, he is tired. It rains. The reality of becoming that person requires effort, not equipment. Soon, the bicycle becomes a guilt-inducing sculpture in the corner. He avoids looking at it. He has not bought a bicycle. He has bought a $2,000 monument to his own lack of willpower. This is the invisible infrastructure. The antidote is a rule so simple it seems childish. Yet it has saved me more money than any investment strategy. I call it the two-step test. Before any purchase over £100 that represents a new version of you, you must pass 2 gates. First, you must rent it, borrow it, or try the cheapest version for 1 month. Want to be a guitarist? Buy a $50 second-hand one first. Second, you must have used that rented or cheap version at least 8 times in that month. If you cannot commit to the practice with the basic tool, you will never commit to it with the premium one. You are not investing in a hobby. You are auditioning a future self. Pay that self a modest salary first. Only promote it if it shows up for work. This habit forces you to separate aspiration from delusion. It turns your spending from a funder of fantasies into a reward for action. Your net worth is not just money in the bank. It is the energy you have not wasted on lives you were never going to live. Stop building infrastructure for ghosts. Start funding the person you actually are, and watch what that person can truly become. Habit 5. The reciprocity trap. The high cost of being seen as good. We now arrive at a habit so deeply woven into our social fabric that to question it feels rude, almost immoral. This is spending driven, Not by need, not by emotion, but by a silent, powerful script about what kind of person you are supposed to be. I call it the reciprocity trap. It does not announce itself as a trap. It feels like obligation. It feels like being a good friend, a generous partner, a respected colleague. It is the third bottle of wine at a dinner because it's my round. It is upgrading to a more expensive hotel on a group trip so you don't seem difficult. It is contributing to a leaving gift for someone you barely know. It is saying yes to the weekend activity you dread because everyone else is excited. You are not buying wine or a hotel room or a gift. You are purchasing social capital. You are paying a premium to maintain your standing, to avoid the invisible tax of being seen as cheap or selfish or not a team player. Let me share a story that cost me more than money. Early in my business, I was invited to join a prestigious networking group. It was filled with successful older entrepreneurs. I was the youngest by 20 years. The first event was a gala dinner. When the bill came, one of the founders suggested, "Let's split it evenly to keep it simple." I looked at my plate. I'd had the salad and water. I looked at theirs. 3 courses, fine wine, whiskey. My share was triple what I'd consumed. My face grew hot. Every cell in my rational mind screamed to speak up, but a louder, more primal fear whispered, "Don't make a scene. Don't be that guy. You need these people." I smiled weakly and handed over my card. That night, I didn't just overpay for dinner. I purchased my own silence. I paid to feel small in my own skin. The financial cost was a few £100. The cost to my self-respect was infinitely higher. That was the reciprocity trap, and I was fully caught. This is the moment most people realize it is too late, not because the money is gone, but because they have traded their financial integrity for social approval, and they don't know how to get it back. You wake up one day, and your lifestyle is not yours. It is a collage of expectations you have agreed to fund. Your spending is no longer a reflection of your values, but a budget for your reputation. Here is a micro-story you will recognize. A team at work orders lunch together every Friday. The order goes to one person. The bill is split equally. Sarah always gets a simple sandwich and a water. Tom always gets the premium meal, extra sides, and a drink. Sarah notices the imbalance every week. She feels a knot in her stomach. But she says nothing. Why? Because to mention it would be to make money an issue. It would be awkward. It would risk her being labeled. So she pays a silence tax week after week. That tax funds Tom's lunch. This is not about $5. This is about the slow erosion of personal boundaries. It is financial osmosis, your wealth quietly diffusing to subsidize the choices of others simply because you lack the script to say, "Let's all pay for what we ordered." The consequence is a life of quiet resentment and diluted wealth. You become financially complicit in a life you did not choose. The antidote is not to become a miser. It is to become courageously transparent. You must preempt the trap. Develop simple, graceful phrases that become your financial armor. "I'm on a tight budget this month, so I'll just get my own." To keep things fair, let's all settle our own tabs. "I'd love to join, but I'll need to skip the expensive part." You must understand, true respect is not bought through subsidizing others. It is earned through the quiet confidence of someone who knows their own boundaries. When you stop paying the reciprocity tax, something remarkable happens. You don't lose friends. You filter for the right ones. You don't lose status. You gain self-possession. Your net worth is not just your assets minus your liabilities. It is also your values minus your compromises. Stop spending to be seen as good. Start spending in alignment with what is truly good for you. The cost of admission to someone else's opinion is always too high. Habit 6. The time conversion, mistaking efficiency for wisdom. We have now reached a habit that is worn as a badge of honor by the modern world. It is the habit of the productive, the busy, the efficient. I call it the time conversion. This is the belief that you can always convert money into time, and that this conversion is not only smart but essential for success. The premium airport transfer to save 90 minutes, the expensive meal delivery to save an hour of cooking and shopping, the business class upgrade to be rested for the meeting. On the surface, it is logical. Time is your most precious asset. Why not spend money to protect it? Here is the devastating truth. You are not buying time. You are buying the illusion of control, and you are selling your financial future to get it. The flaw in the logic is simple, and I learned it only after a decade of being its perfect customer. You see, when you spend $100 to save an hour, you make a critical assumption. You assume that the saved hour will be invested in something of equal or greater value, more work, strategic thinking, self-improvement. But let us be brutally honest. What happens to that hour? It disappears into the void of distraction. It becomes 30 minutes of scrolling and 30 minutes of low-grade anxiety about the $100 you just spent. You have not converted money into productive time. You have converted capital into stress. You have not freed yourself. You have indebted your future to pay for your present impatience. Let me give you a micro-story from my own life, a pattern that repeated itself for years. I would finish a long day of meetings, my mind saturated. I would be faced with the prospect of a 45-minute drive home, stopping at the supermarket, then cooking. The thought felt exhausting. Instead, I would order a premium takeaway, delivered. Cost, $35. Time, saved, perhaps 70 minutes. I would tell myself, this is an investment. I need to recharge. I'll use this time to plan. What did I actually do? I ate the food too quickly at my desk, watched 20 minutes of meaningless television, and went to bed feeling sluggish and financially faint. The $35 was not the cost of dinner. It was the fee for my own avoidance. I was not buying a peaceful evening. I was renting a escape hatch from the modest effort of adult life. Multiplied over months, this single conversion funded a holiday I never took. This is where people wake up at 50 with a hollow feeling, wondering where their wealth went despite a high income. Their financial statements are a ledger of these tiny conversions: $20 for express shipping, $50 for priority support, $200 for the convenient parking spot. Each entry screams, "My time was too valuable for this." But the grand total whispers the real truth. I was too impatient to build real wealth. The most dangerous form of this is what I call productive procrastination spending. You are avoiding a difficult, important task, writing a business plan, having a hard conversation, doing your taxes. So you spend money on things that feel productive. You buy a new ergonomic chair for your home office. You subscribe to another finance app. You order expensive health supplements. You are converting money into the feeling of moving forward while actively avoiding the actual step that would move you forward. The spending is the performance. It is a theater you fund to convince yourself you are building a better future, while the real work goes untouched. The consequence is a life lived on a treadmill of expensive shortcuts. Your net worth is sacrificed at the altar of a perceived time famine you helped create. The antidote is not to become a miser with your time. It is to audit your conversions. For 1 month, I want you to do this. Every single time you are about to spend money to save time, you must pause and ask these 2 questions. First, what is the specific valuable activity I will do with this saved time? If you cannot name it, if the answer is relax or be less stressed, you cannot spend the money. Generalized rest is not a return on investment. Second, is this task truly worth less than my hourly rate? If your effective hourly rate is $50 and you are paying $40 to avoid a 1-hour task, the math seems to work. But you must add the hidden cost, the erosion of your resilience, the lost skill, the dependency you are building. The real cost is always higher. Start to see time not as something to be bought, but as something to be respected. The most powerful financial decision you can make is to occasionally choose the slower, cheaper, more effortful path. It rebuilds your patience muscle. It reconnects you with the value of things. That 45-minute drive with a podcast, that is thinking time. That 30 minutes cooking, that is decompression time. You are not losing an hour. You are gaining an investment in your own capability. Stop converting money into the illusion of time. Start investing your attention into the reality of building something that lasts. Your future self does not need more purchased hours. Your future self needs the compound interest of your undivided, patient effort. Habit 7. The Ghost Mandate. Spending from a script you did not write. We have arrived at the final habit. This is the deepest, most invisible layer. It is not about a transaction or an emotion or a social pressure. It is about identity itself. I call this the Ghost Mandate. This is the money you spend because you carry a silent, inherited script about what a person like you should own, should do, should represent. You are not making choices. You are fulfilling a prophecy written by your past, your background, your perception of your own status. This is where net worth goes to die a quiet, respectable death. Let me explain with a story that still humbles me. For the first decade of my financial success, I drove very nice, very expensive German cars. It was not a conscious decision. It was an automatic upgrade. The logic was flawless. I was a successful businessman. Successful businessmen drive certain cars. It was a non-negotiable line item in the budget of my new identity. One day my accountant, a pragmatic man in his 60s who wore the same coat for 15 years, asked me a simple question during a review. "Mark," he said, looking not at my financials but out the window at the car park, "what is that car for?" I launched into the justifications: safety, reliability, a reward for hard work, the image for clients. He listened patiently and then said, "So it is a $95,000 office." He let that hang in the air. My question is it a productive office, or is it just a very expensive moving chair? That question unraveled a decade of unconscious spending. The car was not a tool. It was a costume. I was paying a monthly fortune to wear the uniform of a person I already was. I was funding a ghost, the ghost of a working-class kid who needed to prove he had arrived. The mandate was fulfilled, but my wealth was diminished. This is the quiet failure most people never name, because to question the ghost mandate is to question who you are. It is the neighborhood you live in because it is appropriate for your career stage. It is the private school fees paid not from conviction, but from a fear of being judged by a parent you internalized at age 12. It is the watch, the handbag, the holiday destination that serves as a tribal marker, signaling, "I belong here." You are not buying an object or an experience. You are paying a toll to cross a bridge into a perceived version of adulthood, success, or social acceptance. And the bridge is an illusion. The toll is perpetual. Here is a micro-story that defines this habit. A man grows up in a household where money is tight. Luxuries are frivolous, even shameful. He builds a successful career. Every time he considers a true luxury, a week at a tranquil spa, a beautiful piece of art, a first-class flight, he feels a deep pang of guilt. It is wasteful. So instead, he spends an equivalent amount on respectable luxuries, a more expensive, sensible car, a kitchen renovation he does not care about, premium financial advisory fees. The spending happens, but the joy does not. He is obeying a mandate from a ghost, the ghost of his father's scarcity. He is spending to appease a conscience that is not even his own. His net worth is being drained to fund a compromise between two identities, leaving the real man unfunded and unseen. The consequence of this habit is a life of expensive emptiness. You achieve the goals, you buy the things, and a profound hollowness remains. Because you were spending on a life you thought you were supposed to want, not the life you actually desired. Your financial energy is siphoned by phantom obligations. This is why people have everything and feel nothing. The antidote is the most challenging work you will ever do with money. It is excavation. You must sit in absolute silence and ask, who am I spending for? Is this for me? Or is it for the ghost of my parents' expectations, the ghost of my former poverty, the ghost of my peers' approval, the ghost of a social media persona? You must separate your authentic values from your inherited mandates. Start with one category. Look at your largest, most fixed expense, your home, your car, your child's education. Ask brutally, if I were completely unknown, if no one I know would ever see or judge this choice, would I still make it? Would I spend this much, in this way? The answer will frighten you. It will show you where your money is held hostage. This is the turning point. Wealth is not the accumulation of things mandated by ghosts. True net worth is the financial freedom to be authored by your own soul. It is the ability to spend on what brings you meaning, not what settles a silent debt to your past. When you silence the ghosts, your spending plummets in some areas and explodes with purpose in others. You stop building a museum to a borrowed identity and start funding the life your true self wants to live. You have now seen the 7 habits. They start with the small leaks and end with the existential theft. They work in concert. The future you tax funds the emotional shelter. The loyalty trap validates the ghost mandate. It is a system, and you have been its willing participant. If you have listened this far, you understand something crucial. These habits do not fail you suddenly. They fail you slowly. You do not wake up one morning broke. You wake up one morning trapped. The life you have is not the life you envisioned, and the gap between them is filled with the cost of these 7 quiet habits. Awareness is not the finish line, it is the starting block. You now have the map. You can see the leaks. This is the work that matters, not chasing the next hot stock, but fixing the broken pipe in your own psychology. Money is not a mystery. It is a mirror. It shows you who you are when you think no one is looking. It shows you what you truly value when social pressure is removed. The journey to real net worth is not about adding more income. It is about ending the silent wars you are financing within yourself. I want you to do one thing tonight, not 10 things. 1. Open your banking app. Look at the last week of transactions. Do not judge, just observe. Find one example of one of these 7 habits. Just one. See it for what it is. Name it. Ah, there is the emotional shelter. That moment of recognition is where your financial power is reborn. It is the moment you stop being a passenger in your own financial life and take the wheel. This is not about perfection. It is about direction. Every pound you redirect from funding these habits is a vote for a different future. It is a brick in the foundation of a life of true choice, of authentic freedom. That is what net worth really is, not a number in an app, but the quiet confidence that you are the author of your own days. If this perspective resonates with you, if you believe that wealth is more than accumulation, then consider this. Subscribe to this channel, but do not subscribe to me. Subscribe to the mindset. Subscribe to the ongoing conversation about building a life that is not just rich in money, but rich in meaning. Consider it a small commitment to staying awake in a world that is constantly trying to lull you back into financial sleep. You now know what to look for. The rest is up to you. I will see you in the next video.